this evening. We're thankful for the freedoms that we have that allow us to do this. We're thankful for the opportunity we have to engage with our citizens. We pray that we can have thy spirit with us, we can have an amicable discussion, conversations, and do the business of the city according to thy will. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks.
Great, so I need a motion for approval of tonight's agenda.
I'll make the motion that we approve tonight's agenda as written.
I'll second it.
Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Okay, any citizens that would like to make a comment at all? Wonderful. Maybe it'd be a good time. Rita, would you like to come up and kind of share with us some of your thoughts?
Deep thoughts.
John said, "Are you okay if we announce this?" You didn't say I was going to have to think. So,
That was my fault.
oh, thank you, Troy. I will be retiring at the end of this year. I'm going to spend some time with family. Liz and I just talked about that. And it was 10 years, October, that I came. People still come to the museum wanting to talk to Vern as the director, so I probably could have gone another 20. But it's been an amazing opportunity, and I will say all the time, I've learned more about city government and the citizens of Springville than I've learned about museums and art, and it's been a really important time in my life to do that and spend time with you. So I'll be giving my report next week and probably look over some of the things of the last 10 years. So thank you very much.
Well, I'm sure we'll have a little more formal opportunity to be able to recognize Rita, but those of you that have associated with Rita know that she's nothing short of a rock star. She's just a wonderful, wonderful individual, and if you've ever seen her in the public putting on a program, she is about as smooth and calm and just steady as you go, and she just ducks and weaves with whatever happens in a program, and it's a great talent, and I wish I had that talent. She just does a beautiful job with people, and she's so well respected in our city as well as our state. So Rita, we're certainly going to miss you, and we wish you the very best, but we'll certainly have a little more formal recognition in a few weeks, so thank you. Okay, you're gonna get me crying. Okay, we need a motion then for approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second?
I'll second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Okay, we have one item tonight, pretty short meeting, but Troy, will turn this over to you regarding police patrol capacity.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. We can make this as long or short as we would like tonight, but to me, this is exciting stuff. I just want to show you some of the things that go on kind of in terms of analysis and looking at things within the budget. Just one place that we do it. About 12 years ago, I was at a presentation, I think, down south here with city managers, and someone made a presentation on a performance-based approach to police staffing and allocation that was pretty interesting to me. And this was a consultant there looking to have that, to be able to do that work. It was a nationwide consultant, but it was an intriguing idea and something I thought we could replicate here. Many police departments look at staffing. I mean, if you look at just about anything on policing, they'll talk about officers per thousand. But as people have studied that over the years, including out of this particular analysis from Michigan State University, officer rate does not correlate to lower crime rate. And you kind of know that intuitively, right? Communities are different. I always look, South Salt Lake is about the size we are. They have triple the amount of police officers that we do, and they have a much, much higher crime rate than we do. It's just a different community. And so I've never really liked to look at officer rates for determining crime. This particular analysis takes, kind of what you're doing, and it says, hey, just go through 6 steps to establish how this is done. It doesn't really matter. You can look at those if you want, and I'm going to take you through some of the stuff that we do to come to this, to look at what's actually happening within patrol and whether we have sufficient patrol officers to handle the caseload that we're looking at. We look at tons of data to do this. These are 2 snapshots of a couple pages out of the spreadsheet I put together to do this. I get some information from the police department directly out of their Spellman system that has information. And there's a lot of great information that you can digest and see how things have changed. One that popped out to me that's intuitively completely obvious, but I was looking at our call data in 2011 and how many abandoned 911 calls we had and how many abandoned cell phone 911 calls we had, and then what that looks like in 2022. And those numbers have completely flipped, right? We have hundreds more abandoned 911 calls on cell phones than we do landlines. Think about the challenge that presents, right? We know a landline where they're located. We have some means to locate the cell phones, but things change over time, even a relatively short amount of time.
Troy, what do you mean by abandoned 911?
So if somebody's called 911, we pick it up, say 911, what's your emergency, silence, or a hang up? Every single time someone calls 911, we have to check it out. So if somebody calls up, if your kid calls 911 and hangs up, what happens, Chief? Officer's going to come to your door, or an officer's going to go look for where that cell phone was when 911 was called, just to make sure that somebody isn't having a medical emergency or something's happening there.
So is that considered an abandoned call if the call comes in, gets hung up, the police go there, and there really is an emergency? Is that
No,
called?
that's not abandoned.
Oh, okay.
And there's really an emergency, and it'll be classified.
So there is good cause for that,
Oh, yeah.
to send the police out on the so-called abandoned call.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not when you're golfing. I did that with that little dot on your phone. I hit it, and I was at Payson, and the Payson police were calling me, and I said, no, I'm sorry. And then 5 minutes later, they called back, we're calling to check, was this really
Yep.
So I got 2 calls, not just one on abandoned call.
Right. There you go. This is a busy chart. Several of them are going to be busy, so we can stick on them as long as possible, or as long as you'd like. These are incidents resulting in a police report. So these are people calling in and generating an incident that results in a police report. So we get thousands more calls than generate a police report. These are by hours of the day throughout the day. Now, the interesting thing here, and a change in our community over the last few years, is look when our busiest time is.
Weird.
Our busiest time is kind of 1 to 4 in the afternoon. We're pretty busy in the evenings too, but usually you think kind of police work, it's like Friday night, right? And Friday nights are busy, but our busiest time is in the afternoon in terms of calls resulting in a police report. Saturday, here's just Saturday. You can see Saturday is just busy all day, but its busiest time is at 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the evening on Saturday. So here are a few assumptions in the reporting we look at. I did look at 3,600 calls for the 3rd quarter. So this data is July, August, and September of 2022. It's very fresh. Our average time that we're spending on a call that comes in that results in a police report being generated is 43 minutes. Our average officers per call is 1.5 officers. So some calls can be handled with 1, sometimes be handled with 2, some with 3, everybody that's around needs to come fast. But on average, our calls are handled with 1.5 officers. Our average time is going up, and quite significantly. In 2011, our average time per call was 31 minutes. It was 38 minutes just last year, 43 minutes this year. The chief and I have brainstormed some of the reasons why that may be happening. When I looked at 2011 to 21, 22, one of the things that definitely is happening is the complexity of our calls is going up. So year over year, not a huge change. Decade over decade, the number of mental health calls we're dealing with, suicidal individuals we're dealing with, more complex crimes, crimes involving a weapon, those are more common today than they were 10 years ago. That's probably leading to this. But these numbers are being input into the model to generate the graphs you're about to see. The average officers per call is actually staying the same, particularly in the recent years, meaning the types of calls we're getting are about balanced, at least in terms of the number of officers we need to respond. Okay, so this is a look at Friday over time. So this is kind of every 3 years over the last decade, how many officers we actually had on patrol, not authorized numbers. This, if people are on training, if they're sick, these are the actual number of officers we had on the street in patrol, not detectives, not upper management, patrol officers out on the street during time. So you can see that grayish line, 2011, overnight we had 2 officers, and kind of throughout the day we had just over 3.5 officers. So some days you'd have 3, some days you'd have 4. When you look at 2022, very consistently we would have 4 officers on, and in the evening hours you're seeing that get up to 5 officers, patrol officers. So you can see an increase in time of the number of officers we're having actually out on patrol. You can see a focus on the evening hours, maximizing our patrol between 4 p.m. and about 10 p.m. or 16 to 22 at the bottom there. But from that first graph you showed, one of our first findings is we may need to rotate that bulge a little bit to our busier time in the early afternoon. Okay, let's look at that a little more specifically. Well, first, this is just 21 to 22. Good news there. Even over the last year, at every hour of the day, we have on average more officers on than we did a year ago. A couple of things there. We're getting some of our new officers trained and out on the street compared to last year. Plus, we've added 2 officers, right? So 2. And those went directly onto patrol shifts. So good news there, seeing that. One of the things I did find, and because we did so much training in the last year, over the summer we had some officers in training, that did result in sometimes where we'd have, say, only 3 officers on shift, and others where we even found a few hours where we had 8 officers on. To me, this is just an interpretation from me that is causing our officers on occasion to feel pretty overwhelmed. You're going to see in a second we need more than 3 officers on regularly, and so those times where we're light shift, they're running around like crazy. And so let's take a look at that. Here's a Sunday. Not a lot of surprise there, but this is a good opportunity to explain what's going on this chart because there's so much happening in just a few lines. So the blue line at the top shows the actual number of patrol officers we had on each hour during the day of the 13 weeks averaged. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, we normally had 3 officers on. And throughout the day, we normally had 4 or 5 officers on. One of the things the chief was able to work through with me that I strongly supported is when he made the suggestion is we have a weakness that we're looking to overcome right now in getting our supervisors more time supervising. And currently, even during this summer, our sergeants are taking the same caseload as our patrol officers. And they're doing that largely because they want to show patrol officers how to work. They want to show them they're willing to take calls, but we also need them training the younger officers. We need them getting officers back on patrol efficiently and quickly. We need them to have time to do their supervisory responsibilities. So the gold line is what we have effective ability to respond if we give our supervisors time to do supervisory activity. And then the black line is a choice, and it's a choice you could potentially change as a council. The black line really says, here's how many officers we want engaged in calls before we're so busy that we're putting both the public and our officers at risk. So we know there's times when every officer we have is busy, but generally what this is saying is we want about a third of our officers able and ready to respond at any given time. And so we're focused internally on the black line. We want to make sure that we always have capacity to respond to the next emergency. And you can see on Sunday, our actual call volume shown there in red with the actual time they're taking on those calls is very low. If the whole week looked like Sunday, I would be here saying we're overstaffed. We only need one police officer. We've got 3 out there. We're way overstaffed. Does that all make sense so far? Okay, so you said, yeah, that's Sunday. Let's take a look at Saturday. Saturday actually looks pretty good too. And that goes back to, in some respects, what we showed at the beginning about when we're busy. There are other things driving police calls than what we all think drive police calls intuitively from watching TV. So here's Tuesday, and we're getting into a danger area, if you will. There are times on Tuesday where our people are truly flat out busy as we want to see them. A couple of things with regard to this. We have a lot of excess capacity at 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. That's in part because of the way we do our shifts, and I'll address that in a second. And we also tend to have a little bit of extra capacity here during the later evening, 8 to 10 p.m., and we're tight down here. Here are the other days of the week, in case you're interested. Monday and Thursday are also bumping right up, Friday as well. Wednesday is just below. But again, where we're running into challenges on our timer between 11 and 3 in the afternoon. So the chief and I have been discussing, and by the way, he was on top of a lot of this before he saw this. He said, oh yeah, I'm working on this, I'm working on this. So he was already working on reducing just a little bit the number of people we have working from 2 to 6 a.m., rotating them earlier in the day. It depends on the shift. Some will go later, some will go earlier. So we have a little more coverage in the middle of the day.
Can I ask a question
Yeah,
at this point?
please.
So is there any data that we have that says why days of the week are any different than any other day of the week? I mean, why is it so high on Tuesday as opposed to, say, Thursday or Wednesday or anything like that?
Any thoughts on that, Chief?
There's more traffic during the week, a lot of traffic accidents, things like that. Kids in school, just people are more active during the week. Sunday certainly much less active than any other day of the week, for sure. We get a lot of people that just passing through Springville during the work week into April because that's our population as well as during the week.
So, I mean, I'm looking across at least the 4 that are up here, and basically all of those calls are bouncing between 2 and 2.5 officers. So there's not a huge swing between that workload. I mean, it bounces a little bit. You can see on Monday the big upswing between 7 and 9 in talking to our officers on that one. People get up and say, I mean, it's kind of like you've done the weekend and you called, hey, my neighbor did this, or this is missing from my yard, or whatever. So Monday mornings tend to be really busy on people calling in for the weekend, just like we may do. I got to call the doctor or the dentist on Monday morning. That's happening for us as well. But the rest of it, you can see on each one of these, you kind of go up to a rough 2 officer to 2.5 officer peak between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. and then a steady drop off on all of them except Saturdays at the late night. Even Friday, if I come back to that one, has a pretty significant drop off in the evening. There's a little uptick there, way late at night. But it's during the day with our traffic, with accidents, with people calling in, and even things like DUIs. Those tended to be after work issues. I bet you're finding, I know you're finding them in the day. And so there's a lot more things than alcohol going on. And so just, it's changing.
So most of it's traffic and things like that. It's not necessarily
Well, again,
crime other than
traffic, I mean, the interesting thing is I'm not layering in just normal traffic stops in this because these are calls coming in from citizens that we need to respond to. So when you layer traffic in on top of this, the accidents are in here because people call and say I was in an accident. But traffic stops are not layered in here. Voluntary traffic stops of our officers are not part of this.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So a couple findings, and then we'll take any other question. Oh, before the findings, I thought this was interesting. Here's our population on the bottom, very bottom, from 2011 to 2022. Here's our patrol officers per hour. I think the good news is in the last 4 years, I mean, generally the line is following our population growth, but I think we've made significant progress since 2017 in getting more officers on the street versus our population growth. So I think that's a good graph to show as well. And then just a few findings beyond those we've discussed. We really are at about the right number of people on patrol. That's my read of it. Our guys think they're very, very busy. I think they are, but we are going to continue to need to add as we grow to keep those graphs from going substantially above that black line we were showing. We're already adjusting shifts, and our supervisors need to work as supervisors. That, we believe, will help drive our time per call down from the 43 minutes, hopefully back closer to the 38, 37 we were seeing if we can get some of our people released a little sooner. So again, just a little snapshot vision into some of the stuff that goes on in the back rooms when we're bored.
So, you started the presentation with showing the Michigan numbers, or officers per thousand, and I know that's something previous chief used to talk about quite a bit.
Right.
What is ours
Just
today?
under one.
Oh, is it really? So it's below one.
Yeah, and I just saw that. I want to say in the West, 1.7 is about the average. Across the country, it's just over 2.
But to your point, it's just a statistic. It doesn't really have
Yeah,
really
it depends
any
on
real
your
meaning.
community.
Yeah.
Most of our neighboring communities are right about that one number, including Provo. So most communities in Utah County are between 1 and 1.2, somewhere in there.
Got a question for Chief Haight. On some of these nights where it's an evening, and do you have officers on call like we would with the volunteer fire? Some of your officers that may be off shift, and if you had a desperate need, are they ever called up to get your uniform on? We need you to come out right now. And does that happen? Yeah.
So we have 2 terms of art within the city policies. There's a difference to us internally between on-call and call-out. And the departments have the choice between those two. So for us, we do have some departments like Power that have on-call employees. They are sitting ready to come out, and they're compensated for that. We have other employees that are called out. Hey, we need your help. Will you come out? When they come out, they actually receive some better pay for being called out versus being ready to come out, receiving some pay, and then getting straight time for coming out. So departments do that differently. I know their detectives are on a call-out basis, and so if you have a call that needs detectives, we issue a call out. They come out, they respond, and they do it, and we get good response from our detectives, right? Yeah, so right now our model's working, and absolutely, yes, we have people ready and willing to come out. Other questions?
These are great statistics, good information to be able to help us. Numbers tell part of the story, and then, of course, you have to fill in with the flesh that the numbers don't all say. So we really appreciate having that information. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
I would ask one more about, since just we didn't really give Chief Hay a chance to address, other than the comment about overtime pay. And it's maybe not fair to ask you, but what are your thoughts about the possibility of doing that? I called it a blitz, but whatever. Is that something realistic? I mean, is it something we could actually ask you to do that seems to make sense, or do you think you just let this kind of go away? And yeah, I just want to know your feelings about that suggestion. Sure. Oh, yeah.
crosswalks. We've had some of our officers just doing more traffic enforcement. But we could do the
I really think it would make a difference for short term. If you can pull it off, I think it would make, and I wouldn't mind having a heads up so we could kind of monitor it as a council to kind of come and see how that's working, you know.
There's two approaches. We can do high visibility, so we could sit in intersections with our lights on, and everybody slows down, or we could take our unmarked cars and be more covert and do
Well,
strict enforcement that way too. So.
I'd try a little bit of everything.
Well, I think what we've tried to do is get Brad and yourself together to kind of brainstorm and think through what would be appropriate and give us a recommendation, so.
And I think the council is aware of this, but for those that are here, we follow up at the staff level with a coordination meeting the day after every council meeting. All of the suggestions and assignments given by the city council during city council meeting are kind of divvied out, discussed, and make sure we have a complete understanding. And that's what will happen tomorrow afternoon with both Public Works and Power on all the discussion from tonight.
I appreciate knowing that too, then I wouldn't have had to ask that question, so.
And there's different approaches we can take when we're doing the enforcement too. We can do an educational, give people warnings, or we can go zero tolerance, and anybody who does any violation gets a ticket. So it's kind of to a degree,
I wouldn't profess to have the right answer for that one, but I wouldn't mind seeing tickets.
We'll discuss it tomorrow and stuff will happen.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Chief. We appreciate it. And thanks, Troy, for the data. Is there anything else that needs to be brought up for the city council meeting? Okay. Yes, I think it would be very good for them to know. So, yeah. I assume it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, less? Okay.
It's a picture story that can go.
Yeah, it's a great picture story. So watch the screens. It's not a movie you want to see again.
So over the weekend, we actually had another water main break up on Spring Oaks. And we wanted to just kind of update you on what's going on. So first I wanted to start here. Just watch the video. Our guys are up there watching this. They think that it's a service lateral break.
Note the gas blue stake right
Yeah.
there.
So there's gas line directly under that yellow. All the soil's gone.
Oh, what? Also what?
All the soil's gone.
Oh.
It didn't bubble out. It's gone. And so when they saw that, we called out the troops and got people going on this. So that's the size of the hole that just fell out. It actually it caved in back further about where the bucket is. That all the soil was gone. So what we did is our crew started working. We got in there and started digging out, and we found the water main, and we found this break. Pipe looks really good. There's not a whole lot going on with the pipe. It's just bent and broken, snapped in half. But our workers were kind of questioning. They started working and looking closer, and as they moved back upstream, these are barnacles, rust barnacles. And what they actually found was that up under here was a 3-inch diameter hole in the main, and that had been shooting down. And as it took out all the soil underneath the main, then it
That's
snapped the
what
main in half, and then it started taking stuff up above. And so this was kind of what we had. So we started repair work. This is one of our workers in there cutting the pipe. We put in a temporary cap. Now, mind you, that area is served by two different ways. There's a high main that comes across the hillside, and there's also one that comes up the Center Street Road itself, up to it. And so we were able to keep everybody in water except for one house that was vacant at the time, which was really good. We had to highline one of the houses, which means we connected at one house and ran a hose across to the other house so that they still had water. So this was a temporary repair that we put in place. Then we started looking, we started thinking back, where'd all the soil go? That's scary, right? Where did it go? So we started thinking about our sewer lines. And so we called the TV truck and had it come up, and as the TV truck was coming up, a neighbor walked over and said, I've got silt in my basement laundry room that came up. And that is the same color as as what was in the hole. Now, there is damage in here. This is from a previous incident at the house. And I took more pictures. The bottom, these particle board cabinets are all swollen out. So they've already had water from a window issue that they had. And we've taken lots of pictures of that. But we were investigating more. So we actually got the TV truck and we started down the line in the manhole above, got right under where this break was. And sure enough, we had an offset joint of about 3.5 inches. This is a service lateral coming in. We did a little bit more investigation on that. And actually, we followed up today. And they went through and they dug up the main. It's about 15 feet down. So that's a big shoring thing. What they found was when they put that service in 20 some odd years ago, or whenever it was, 80s, you said, Mayor?
Mm-hmm.
That it actually, the concrete pipe, it actually broke it. But it was just broken and it cracked because of where they drilled the hole in the pipe. And probably the water main helped that as it settled down, it slipped down. So they were up there today, they fixed the sewer line. You can see the main way down in the bottom here. This is the main.
Yeah, this is a private crew on that fix.
Right, that's a contractor.
We don't have that.
We don't have that. We also, starting yesterday, we had our Vector crews out looking for the sand that got washed into the pipe, and they've been pulling a lot of sand out. They start up high and they just come down through and they'll go all the way to the plant on where that water would flow to the plant. So we're working on that as follow-up. So our next steps for us is the sewer main was repaired today. They're going to reconnect the water mains so that you have upper and lower. This is the upper feed here. It comes from the tank, and then there's the lower feed coming off Center Street. And this is the area where the break was right in here.
Where
So-
was your emergency repair the council authorized?
What's that?
Where was the emergency repair the council authorized?
Emergency repair was right in here, about 40 feet of there's two things. There was $12,000 for the sewer line repair. Maybe I gotta mix it. $18,000 for the sewer line repair and $12,000 for the extending the water down past that barnacled area to where the cap was.
So that was today, but didn't we just work on that same line to the tune of over 100,000?
And on Center Street.
Yeah, no, that was, yeah, we worked up here. We actually had that come around the corner, yeah.
Yeah, so what we're saying is kind of this whole line probably has,
Issues.
Has problems all the
So,
way
and
through.
that's in the next thing as I click here is that we're reviewing the break history. We're gonna do exploratory excavations down the road to see if we're getting the same type of barnacles on the pipe, and also do a leak survey to where they go out and they actually listen to the pipe. And then with that, we'll be able to define the additional project if needed. We may have to go all the way down to Center Street here. But that's as we investigate, we'll be able to make a good decision on that with the data and the information we have.
So you're sitting right on top of the fault. Do you think that had anything to do with it, or do you
No,
think
this
it
is
was-
corroding pipe, yeah. Anyway, any questions? Was that 5 minutes I did?
That's fun
You're
stuff.
good. Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, anything else that we need to review? Okay, I need a closed session though for real estate.
John?
Okay,
I motion we close this meeting, go into, oh no, we can't close it. I motion that we go into closed session, discuss litigation and real estate, and then close the meeting.
very good. Second?
Second.
Is this a roll call vote? Okay, Miss Liz,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.